Hello. I miss you guys so much. I'm tired of reading in my kitchen. I want to go back to the classroom and read in my rocking chair with all of you on the carpet, but unfortunately we can't do that yet. So we're gonna make the best of it, and I'm gonna keep reading to you this way, and I hope you keep watching. So we live in Ohio, and it's springtime, which means our weather has been crazy. So we've had snow, we've had rain, we've had like 20 degrees, then 60 degrees, and then fog. So we've had it all lately. So I thought that it would be fun to read this book, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. So I know, you're like, oh, I've watched that movie before. Well, this is very different from the movie. So if you haven't watched the movie, maybe you can do that sometime soon. If you have Netflix or Amazon or Prime, or sometimes it's on TV because it's a bit older, but it is different than this story. So here we go. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was just squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat, and Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed towards the kitchen ceiling. What is it? Do you see it here? I think it's a pancake. And landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he'd ever told. So a tall tale is a made-up story. So let's hear Grandpa's tall tale. Across an ocean, over lots of bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, a schoolhouse, and about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, at lunch, and dinner. Everything that everyone ate came from the sky. Wouldn't that be something? Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained, and it never snowed snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. You can see the juice and the green peas, the mashed potatoes, and then the storms of hamburgers. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knife, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in their refrigerators in case they got hungry in between meals. So there's Grandpa watching the weather forecast. And people in the town ready for their meal any time of the day. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side-up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. That's another word for hot dogs. There were mustard and clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worst. And our newspaper says, "Spaghetti ties up town." One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. It's a very stinky cheese. The next day there was only broccoli, all overcooked. The next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Ugh, can you imagine? Another day there was a pea soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that was stuck in the fog. So these are not very delicious meals. Lunch one day brought 15-inch strips of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomach ache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere. So, things are not going well for the people of Chew and Swallow. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. So they have all these storms of food. The sanitation department can't keep it cleaned up. So they're all going to leave and try to live somewhere else. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread, sandwich style, with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. So they're making a ship here. And now they're setting sail to find a new town. After After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well, well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. So here they found a new place, and they've made new houses. The next morning we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter on, and at the top we could almost smell mashed potatoes. So here they're seeing snow for the first time. And now this big snow hill with the sun coming up behind it, they think looks like mashed potatoes with butter melting over top of them. The end. So this story is always fun. If you want, you could write about if the weather was going to rain food. What would you want it to rain? So you would probably want it to rain some of your favorite things. So I think I would want it to rain fruit, especially watermelon. Watermelon's my favorite. And I really like Chinese food, and I like nachos and cheese, and I like healthier things too. I like salads and chicken. So I don't know. I could come up with all kinds of different forecasts for the whole week. That would be fun. So that could be a fun writing activity you could do. And if you do that, you can share them on Class Tag. I'd love to see a picture of it and read it. Or you could take a video of yourself reading it. That would be fun too. All right, until next time. Bye, boys and girls.